So good morning and welcome to this session on axilla. The axilla is this part of the body. Okay. Now, where my hand is moving currently is the floor of the axilla. The apex of the axilla will be inside. It will be at this point. It will be truncated. It will be formed by clavicle anteriorly, and it will be formed by the upper border of scapula posteriorly, and first strip like this. So here we have a triangle, and this triangle is called as cervicoaxillary canal, through which the structures enter the axilla. From axilla they enter the arm, and from arm they go to the forearm. Okay. So the axilla has anterior wall, which will be formed by the pectoralis major, pectoralis minor, subclavius, and the clavipectoral fascia. So this is the anterior wall of the axilla. The posterior wall of the axilla will be formed by subscapularis, teres major, and latissimus dorsi muscle. The medial wall, when I put my hand deep inside, I reach the medial wall, and what I feel is the ribs. So medial wall of the axilla is formed by the ribs with intercostal muscles, upper four ribs with intercostal muscles, and upper four digitations of serratus anterior muscle. And then what is there laterally? Laterally is humerus. So axilla, the lateral wall is formed by the upper part of the humerus in the region of the bicipital groove, where we find the biceps brachii and coracobrachialis muscle. So anterior wall formed by pectoralis major, minor, and subclavius. Posterior wall formed by subscapularis, the latissimus dorsi and teres major. Medial wall formed by upper four ribs, intercostal muscles, serratus anterior, and lateral wall formed by humerus. Floor formed by the skin of the axilla, and the apex is formed by the cervicoaxillary canal. With that brief discussion, we will move on and study diagrammatically the boundaries of axilla, contents of axilla, and the brachial plexus.
So now coming to diagrammatically studying the axilla. Axilla is like a truncated pyramid. Okay. So this is the apex, which is truncated. This is the base. Okay. And then there will be four walls: anterior, posterior, medial, and lateral. If I take a sagittal section passing through the axilla, what do I mean by sagittal section? Suppose this is a person who is standing. This is the anterior side. This is the posterior side. So if I take a section like this, okay. So this is the person. So if I take a section like this is called a sagittal section. So in a sagittal section, what I see is clavicle. Clavicle will appear round because it is running like this. Okay. And attached to the clavicle is pectoralis major muscle in the pectoral fascia. Below the clavicle is clavipectoral fascia, where there is this muscle called subclavius. This splits to enclose a muscle called pectoralis minor. So this is pectoralis major. This is pectoralis minor. And so axilla is approximately this space here. So this is the anterior wall of the axilla. Posterior wall of the axilla is formed by three muscles: the subscapularis, teres major, and latissimus dorsi. These are the muscles which are attached to the scapula. Anteriorly, three structures: pectoralis major, pectoralis minor, and subclavius, and they are enclosed in the clavipectoral fascia. In the content, I am just showing the axillary artery. The axillary artery. Okay. So anteriorly, we have three structures. Anteriorly three muscles, and posteriorly three muscles. Now, if I go to the medial wall, which I am not able to show you here, but the medial wall, what I will see is the ribs, upper four ribs. And then in between the ribs are the intercostal muscles and the serratus anterior. Okay. So the ribs will be on the medial side. On the lateral side, here will be the humerus. On the lateral side will be the humerus. So when I am to write, okay, and one more structure I just wanted to show you is how the apex is formed. Now suppose this is the clavicle, and this is the upper border of the scapula, and this is the first rib. So this is the first rib, this is the clavicle, and this is the upper border of scapula. So this space in between is called as cervico-axillary canal. Cervico-axillary canal. This cervico-axillary canal forms the apex of the axilla, and it is through this that the structures will pass into the upper limb like this, in between these structures. So from the neck, from the neck will come the brachial plexus, and it will pass through this area. So now if we have to write the axilla in a tabular form, let us start writing. The apex of the axilla is formed by three structures, mainly forming the cervico-axillary canal. Okay, so it is formed by three structures. One, clavicle. Okay, posterior part of the clavicle. Two, outer border of first rib. And three, upper border of scapula. Okay, base is formed by skin of the axilla. Anterior wall, then posterior wall, medial wall, and lateral wall. All are formed by three structures. Anterior wall formed by pectoralis major, pectoralis minor, subclavius. Together, these two are in the clavipectoral fascia. Posterior wall formed by three muscles, subscapularis, teres major muscle, and latissimus dorsi. Medial wall is formed by three structures, upper four ribs, serratus anterior, and intercostal muscles. Intercostal muscles in the upper four spaces. Lateral wall is formed by the humerus in the region of bicipital groove. Now, what is bicipital groove? You'll understand when you study the humerus. And there are two tendons, coracobrachialis, and short head of biceps. Short head of biceps. So this is about the boundaries of axilla. Talking about the contents of axilla, axillary artery, axillary vein, axillary artery, axillary lymph nodes, axillary pad of fat, and infraclavicular part of brachial plexus. Okay, then there are few other nerves like intercostobranchial nerve and nerve to serratus anterior. Nerve to serratus anterior and intercostobrachial nerve. Okay, so these are the contents of the axilla. Now coming to the next important topic, and that is axillary artery. Okay. Now coming to the axillary artery is a continuation of subclavian artery. Subclavian artery is a branch directly coming from the arch of aorta on the left side, and on the right side it arises from the brachiocephalic trunk. This subclavian artery, suppose this is the outer border of the first rib, and here is teres major muscle. Okay, so this is first rib, this is teres major muscle. So subclavian artery is passing like this. When it crosses the outer border of first rib, so this is subclavian artery. When it crosses the outer border of first rib, it is called axillary artery. This axillary artery, when it crosses the lower border of teres major muscle, now it is called brachial artery. So it is all the same. It is the same artery, but given different name. Like we have a single road actually passing from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, but somewhere it is called as NH40, somewhere it is called NH50, somewhere it is called NH1. Different names are given. So same artery in different areas, it is given different names. So the axillary artery extends from outer border of, so when we talk about extend, we say outer border of first rib to lower border of teres major. Then the parts. This axillary artery is divided into three parts by a muscle crossing anterior to it, and that muscle is pectoralis minor muscle. Pectoralis minor divides it into first part, second part, and third part. First part is proximal to pectoralis minor. So first part is proximal to pectoralis minor. Second part is posterior to it. It is behind. So artery is going like this. The pectoralis minor is over the artery. So we say first part is proximal to the pectoralis minor. Second part is posterior to pectoralis minor. Third part is distal. Distal means away. Proximal means near. We say proximity. I stay in close proximity. So towards the body is proximal. Away from the body is distal. Okay. So these are the three parts of the axillary artery. What are the branches? The branches of the axillary artery, from the first part arises only one branch, and that is superior thoracic artery. So one branch from first part, two branches from the second part. So acromiothoracic artery, which arises from the second part, and lateral thoracic artery. So one branch from the first part was superior thoracic, and second and third branch were from the second part. They were acromiothoracic and lateral thoracic. And three branches from the third part. subscapular artery, and anterior and posterior circumflex humeral artery. Anterior circumflex humeral artery, so it will go around the humerus like this anteriorly. Posterior circumflex humeral artery will go around the humerus on posterior, and they unite with each other. So there are total 6 branches of the axillary artery. Now, why we need to know this? If there is some bleeding going on, if somebody's hand, forearm is cut and there is bleeding, so you can press in the axilla. You know axillary arteries in the axilla. If you press here in the axilla, the bleeding will stop. Another thing, this subscapular artery, which arises from the axilla, goes around the scapula, as the name suggests, subscapular. There, here from the subclavian arises one artery called as dorsal scapular artery. So both of them unite around the axilla. So in case axillary artery is blocked from subclavian artery, the blood will go to dorsal scapular artery, then around the scapula, and then through the subscapular artery, it will come back and upper limb will get its blood supply. So subclavian gives a branch called as dorsal scapular artery. Axillary gives branch from the third part called as subscapular artery. So they anastomose, both of them go around the scapula and anastomose. Why such arrangements are there in our body? That in case axillary artery is blocked, the upper limb should not be deprived of blood and the upper limb should not get necrosed and die. The tissue of the upper limb should not die. So the blood flows from subclavian to dorsal scapular to scapula. So suppose this is the scapula, dorsal scapula to scapula, from there to subscapular, and from subscapular to axillary third part. And so in case of blockage of the first or the second part of axillary artery, the blood can still flow through it, through the anastomosis around the scapula, where the dorsal scapular branch of subclavian comes, gives blood, and subscapular branch of axillary is also. So that's the applied anatomy of the axillary artery. Now coming to the relations of the axillary artery. Relations of the axillary artery are divided into 3 parts. The relations of the first part, the relations of the second part, relations of the third. So once we know the boundaries of the axilla, the structures forming the anterior wall will be anterior to the axillary artery. So suppose this is the artery in the first part, in the second part, and in the third part. So always anteriorly will be pectoralis major. So what I am drawing here is anterior. Posteriorly will be the posterior wall structures. In the second part, it will be the subscapularis. In the third part, it will be teres major and latissimus dorsi. Always on the medial side is axillary vein. Now, in the second part, we said that the pectoralis major is anterior, minor is also anterior. The pectoralis major is there anterior in all the 3 parts, but in the second part, pectoralis minor is also. Laterally is one muscle called coracobrachialis. Coracobrachialis. Now, what is there posteriorly in the first part? The structures forming the medial wall. There will be ribs, intercostal muscle, and serratus anterior muscle. Okay, that means anteriorly throughout in the relations of the axillary artery, this is the artery, is pectoralis major. In the second part, there is pectoralis minor also. Posteriorly is subscapularis in the second part, teres major, latissimus in third part, and first part posteriorly are the structures forming the medial. Coracobrachialis laterally always, vein medially always. Now in the second part, there are cords of brachial plexus. On the medial side, there is medial cord. On the posterior side, there is posterior cord. On the lateral side, there is lateral cord. These cords will continue as the major nerves. These cords arise from the brachial plexus of nerves. We'll discuss brachial plexus in some time. And these cords continue as major nerves of the upper limb. So the lateral cord almost continues as median nerve. Medial cord continues as ulnar nerve, and posterior cord continues as radial nerve. All of you must have heard of radial artery where we feel the pulse. Similarly, there is a radial nerve. There is a bone ulna. On that side, there is a nerve ulnar nerve, and median nerve is on the laterals. And in the first part, we don't see the cords in this position. Rather, the cords are named as per their position around the second part. Here what happens is the medial cord is posterior cord is lateral, and lateral cord is also lateral. The first. Then they take their positions in the second. This is the relations of the axillary artery. Whenever we are drawing diagram like this, we have to put sign like this. Whatever is here is anterior, whatever here is posterior. And this side is medial, and this side is lateral. So we tell side. This is a schematic diagram showing the relation of the axillary artery. Okay. So we have studied the axillary artery, how it is start from the outer border of first step and extends up to the lower border of teres major, divided into three parts by pectoralis minor muscle. First part, one branch superior thoracic, second part, two branches acromiothoracic and lateral thoracic, third part subscapular artery, anterior circumflex and posterior circumflex. Applied anatomy in case of blockage of the axillary artery, the anastomosis from the scapula, which is formed by dorsal scapular branch of subclavian and subscapular branch of axillary, they provide blood supply to the upper. We studied the relations of the axillary artery in the first part, second part, and third part. Vein is always medial, coracobrachialis muscle is always lateral, pectoralis major is always anterior, and pectoralis minor is also anterior in the second. Okay? That we studied in the second part. We said pectoralis minor goes like this. So it will, so pectoralis major will be throughout anterior in first, second, and third part. And in second part, there will be pectoralis minor also. So we have drawn pectoralis minor. The cords, lateral cord laterally, medial cord medially, posterior cord medially in the posteriorly in the second part. Third part, lateral cord continues as median nerve, medial cord continues as ulnar nerve, posterior cord continues as the radial nerve. In the first part, the cords for medial cord was posterior cord was lateral, and lateral cord was lateral. They are lateral. So this is about the axillary artery, and the next topic is brachial plexus. So the brachial plexus is formed by it is the plexus of nerves. Brachial plexus is the plexus of nerve, and it is formed by the anterior primary rami of C5 nerve, C6, C7, C8, and T. Sometimes C4 may be involved. That time the plexus is called prefixed. Sometimes T2 may be involved. It is called postfixed plexus. Anterior primary rami. The posterior primary rami, they don't form plexus. They supply the muscles of the back. Anterior primary rami, they form the plexus. Many plexuses, cervical plexus in the neck region, brachial plexus in the upper limb region, lumbar plexus in the lumbar region, sacral plexus in the sacral region. Lumbar plexus, sacral plexus, their nerves supply the lower limb. Brachial plexus, the nerves arise from this plexus, supplies the upper limb. So C5 C6, C7, C8, and T. So the anterior primary rami of these, they form the plexus, and they are the ones which are called as roots. All of you must have heard the term RTDC, Rajasthan's Roots Development Corporation, or even in Maharashtra we have MTDC, Maharashtra Tours Development Corporation. So RTDC, so these are the roots. This C5, C6 roots, now because we are talking about a plexus, so the roots that unite to form upper trunk. C7 continues as middle trunk. C8 and T1, they unite to form lower trunk. So after the roots, the next thing is trunks. R, T, the next will be division and cord. So these are the four parts of the brachial plexus. In axilla, we only see the infraclavicular part, and that is the cords and their branch. Right now, we are discussing the entire brachial plexus, which is in the neck region, actually. Axilla is in the upper limb. So all this will form cords, and these cords will pass through the cervicoaxillary canal into the axilla and then to the upper. So next is trunks. After roots is trunks. Upper trunk, middle trunk, lower. Each trunk further divides into R, T, D, roots, trunks, division. Each trunk divides into anterior and posterior division. Anterior and posterior division. Only at the lower part when I'm drawing now, I'm drawing posterior and anterior like. Even here also I can draw posterior and anterior. Now what happens is the posterior of all the three unite to form posterior cord. So this was root. The roots united to form trunk. C7 continued as its own trunk. And then anterior division and posterior division. The posterior divisions of all the three trunks united to form posterior. The anterior divisions of the middle and upper trunk unite to form lateral cord. And the anterior now remains the anterior division of the lower trunk. It continues down at medial cord. So now we have reached the cords. So roots, trunks, divisions, and cord. So before we go ahead, I would just like to track like the lateral cord. This is the lateral cord. From where it is deriving fibers, C5, C6, and C7. So lateral cord, most of the branches will have a root value of C5, C6, and C7. Because you see, you track their fibers back, we come to C7 and we come to C5, C5, C6, C7. While the medial cord, if you go back, it is just a continuation of the anterior division of the lower trunk. So its root value will be C8, T1. So all its branches will have root values C8 and T1. Well, posterior cord is receiving from C5, C6, it is receiving from C7, C8, T1. It will have anything between C5 to T1. Huh? It's not that everybody will have C5 to T1. Some may just pick up C5, C6, some may just pick up C6, C7, C8. Now, let us see the branches. Arising from the roots are two branches. Arising from C5 is a branch called as dorsal scapular nerve, which has a root value of C5. Okay, C5. And it supplies the rhomboid muscles. Rhomboid shaped muscles are there, supplies the rhomboid. Arising from C5, C6, and C7 is nerve of Bell, which supplies the serratus anterior. So there are two nerves arising from the roots. Dorsal scapular nerve supplying the rhomboid and nerve to serratus anterior or nerve of Bell. Then there are two nerves arising from the trunks, only upper trunk. Middle trunk and lower trunk don't give rise to any. Their names are suprascapular nerve, which supplies the supraspinatus and infraspinatus. Its root value will be C5, C6. And nerve to subclavius. Subclavius muscle we have seen below the clavicle, it takes over. Now to subclavius. Its root value will be C5, C6. Now to Bell, the root value will be C5, C6, and C7. Takes origin from C5, takes fibers from C6, and takes fibers from C7, and supplies serratus anterior muscle, which is boxer's muscle for pushing and punching. Now let us go to the branches of the cords. The branches of the lateral cord, the mnemonic is LML. Lateral pectoral, which will supply the pectoralis major muscle. Root value will be C5, C6, C7. Musculocutaneous nerve. Name suggests supplies some muscle and some skin. So musculocutaneous, now it supplies the biceps. Biceps muscle is supplied by this. So C5, C6, C7. And this continuation here is called as lateral root of median. Lateral root of median nerve. That will also have the root value C5, C6, C7. LML, the mnemonic for the nerves arising from lateral cord. Lateral pectoral, musculocutaneous, and lateral root of median. Nerves arising from the posterior cord. They can have root value anything between C5 to T1. Upper subscapular, upper and lower subscapular nerves. Subscapular nerves. Somehow they pick up only C5, C6. They don't pick up other fibers. Then axillary nerve. It also, this supplies the deltoid muscle. Deltoid muscle is the where we take injections. If the injections are not given properly, the axillary nerve, if it injection always has to be given in the lower part of deltoid, if given in the upper part of the deltoid, the axillary nerve can be damaged. And it also gives nerve to latissimus dorsi. Nerve to latissimus dorsi, and its root value is C6, C7, C8. Nerve to latissimus dorsi. And posterior cord continues as radial nerve, whose root value is C5, C6, C7, C8, and C. Continues as radial nerve. Posterior cord continues as radial. Now coming to the medial cord. The mnemonic for median cord nerves is M4U. There are 4 M's. Medial pectoral nerve, which also supplies the pectoralis major, root value C8T. Medial cutaneous nerve of arm, root value C8T1. Medial cutaneous nerve of forearm, root value C8T1. It supplies the medial part of arm, medial part of forearm skin. And medial root of median nerve, which goes like this, unites with the lateral root of median to form median nerve. This medial root of median will also have root value C8T1. Now, here we have median nerve, which is formed from the lateral root of median, which has root value of C5, C6, C7. And it has the medial root of median C8T1 has united. So median nerve will have C5, C6, C7, C8, T1. So lateral cord is continuing as median nerve, posterior cord is continuing as radial nerve, and medial cord M4U, it continues down as ulnar nerve. Ideally, it should have root value of C8 and T1, but it gets additional fibers of C7 also. So from C7, there is communicating branch which gives fibers to the ulnar. We'll discuss further why it gets C7. The brachial plexus, which we thought we started with a very simple note that saying that it is a plexus of nerve formed by the anterior primary rami of C5, C6, C7, C8, T1, and slowly it got complicated. We said the plexus is formed only by the anterior rami, posterior rami don't form plexuses, they supply the extensor muscles. There are 4 parts of the brachial plexus: roots, trunks, divisions, and cords. Roots are formed by the anterior primary rami of C5, C6, C7, C8, T1. Upper 2 roots unite to form upper trunk. C7 root unites to form middle trunk. C8, T1 roots unite to form lower trunk. Each trunk divides into division, R, T, D, C. Each trunk divides into divisions, further anterior, posterior. All posterior divisions unite to form posterior cord. They will supply the extensor. Posterior divisions supply the extensor muscle. Anterior divisions of the upper 2 trunks unite to form the lateral cord, which continued as median. And anterior division of the lower trunk continued as ulnar. Each had a root value. The nerves arising from the root were dorsal scapular nerve C5 supplying the rhomboids, nerve of Bell C5, C6, C7 supplying serratus anterior. Only 2 nerves arising from roots, 2 nerves arising from the trunk, only the upper trunk, suprascapular nerve supplying the supraspinatus and infraspinatus muscle. Nerve to subclavius supplying the subclavius. The coming to the cords. The lateral cord Mnemonic is LML, lateral pectoral, musculocutaneous, lateral root of median. All of them having root value C5. Medial cord M4U, medial pectoral nerve, medial cutaneous nerve of arm, medial cutaneous nerve of forearm, medial root of median. All of them having root value C81 and ulnar, which has C7X. Posterior cord supplies the extensor muscle, upper and lower subscapular, then axillary nerve, nerve to latissimus dorsi, and radial. So these were the, which is all about the brachial plexus. Now the applied anatomy. So these nerves, they are arising from the neck and passing like this, the upper, middle, and the upper trunk, middle trunk, lower trunk, or rather they are passing somewhere like this. So this is the neck, this is the shoulder. So anything that increases this angle between the neck and the shoulder will damage the upper trunk. It will damage the upper trunk, C5, C6. So this classically happens when a person from the motorbike, he falls down and his head is here and his shoulder is like this. So now head goes like this, shoulder goes like this, and so angle between the head and the shoulder increases, and that is the time where the upper trunk is damaged, and that leads to a paralysis called as Erb's paralysis. Erb's paralysis. Anything that increases the angle between the head and the shoulder, that will stretch the upper trunk, and that will lead to Erb's paralysis, policeman stiffs paralysis, waiter stiffs paralysis, where the hand is by the side, where the whole upper extremity is by the side and hand is flexed. Okay. Now anything by which the hand suddenly goes up, like if somebody is falling from the building and he catches something and this hand suddenly goes up, that time the lower trunk gets stretched, and that leads to paralysis called as the Klumpke's paralysis. Klumpke's paralysis. Okay, I'll demonstrate this to all of you.
So the three trunks from the neck are going like this to the upper lip. Now, whenever the angle between the head and the neck increases, the upper trunk gets stretched. So this classically happens when somebody falls on the ground and I hit the ground and these two get separated. Or something falls, heavy weight falls on the shoulder and head remains like this. So that time also the upper trunk gets damaged. And when upper trunk gets damaged, the person gets what is called as Erb's paralysis. So in Erb's paralysis, it is also called as waiter tip or policeman tip paralysis. The hand is like this. So it is like a waiter or a policeman waiting for some tip. Give me some tip. So hand is adducted, medially rotated, elbow is extended, hand is flexed, and fingers are straight. So as if somebody is wanting some money. So this is called as Erb's paralysis. The second paralysis is Klumpke's paralysis. So this angle increases upper trunk damage. And if somebody is falling from a tree and he catches something and suddenly this part gets stretched, so the lower trunk now gets stretched because upper trunk is running like this, but lower trunk which goes like this, it gets stretched more, and this leads to paralysis called as Klumpke's paralysis. And this Klumpke's paralysis damages the lower trunk, which was from where ultimately C8 T1 the ulnar nerve was arising, which ulnar nerve supplies the fingers of the hand, and then the hand becomes like this classical claw hand. That is Klumpke's paralysis. Again, if the nerve to serratus anterior is damaged, serratus anterior is involved in protraction of the scapula. It is attached to the medial border of scapula. So if that is damaged, it can lead to winging of scapula. So that is all about the applied anatomy of the brachial plexus. One more topic, that is the axillary lymph nodes, which is also very important. There is anterior group of lymph nodes. There is the posterior group of lymph nodes, lateral group of lymph nodes. So if you see the lymph nodes of the axillary area, axillary lymph nodes has an anterior group. Okay, it has an anterior group. This anterior group drains the breast. It drains the breast. It has a lateral group. This lateral group drains the upper limb. It has a posterior group, which is along the subscapular vessel. Anterior is along the lateral thoracic vessel. And it has a posterior group, which drains the upper part of the trunk in the back area. All three, they drain into the central group, and central drains into the apical group. So anterior group draining the breast, lateral group draining the upper limb, posterior group draining the upper back. All three drain into central, central drains into apical. Of this, the anterior group are very important because in case of carcinoma of the breast, they are the ones which get enlarged. So with that, we stop our discussion on axilla. Thank you.